If your team keeps coming to you for every decision, every issue, and every fire, and you need them to take more ownership so that you have time, energy, and mental bandwidth for the work that only you can do, I want to show you 5 practical shifts you can make this week to start building more ownership in your team and to help them stop depending on you for everything. If we haven't met yet, I'm Dr. Alicia Granholm, a leadership strategist with a doctorate in strategic leadership. I've spent the last 20 years leading teams and helping leaders build organizations that don't depend on one person carrying everything. I want you to be able to lead at a high capacity and get great results at work and have time for your loved ones, your hobbies, and your health without thinking about work all the time. So let's dive in. Shift 1, stop answering all questions immediately. No, not stop answering all questions immediately. Stop answering all questions immediately. The speed at which you answer questions trains your team's dependency level. Now, some questions deserve immediate answers. So you'll need to help your team learn the difference between urgent, important, and aspirational. Urgent gets saved for when something is broken, at risk, or needing immediate attention. Important means that it aligns with your current priorities, and aspirational is it's a good idea, but not for right now. I did a whole video on this, so if you want more details, it's linked in the description below. Now, you want to introduce this framework to your team because as you shift from answering all their questions immediately, you don't want to ghost your team in the process. You want them to know that you are genuinely available for anything urgent that comes up and that you'll be saving anything important or aspirational for your weekly team meetings or your one-on-ones. When I stepped into a senior director position, my inbox was flooded, and my direct reports would send me emails daily, even though we had weekly team meetings and one-on-ones. So for the first month when I was introducing this system to my team, I would simply reply to an email with, "Let's talk about this during our one-on-one," to start to change the culture. And then I would put it in their personal folder in my email system and set a weekly reminder to check their email folder before our one-on-ones so that we could genuinely discuss those items then. Then when we do discuss it in one-on-ones, I start asking them with what they would recommend doing. By asking them this, it starts to help them see that they likely already know the best way forward. They had just been too dependent on someone else to really think about it for themselves. Now my team knows that when they bring me a challenge they're working through or they're unsure about which way to go, I will always ask them first, "Well, what do you think?" And sometimes they just need reassurance that they're headed in the right direction, which I'm super happy to encourage. Not only does this system save a lot of time, but it also reduces miscommunication because topics that need a true discussion get one face-to-face rather than through email, which, let's be honest, can cause a lot of miscommunication. So I want you to stop answering all questions immediately. So this week, when someone brings you a problem, ask them, is this urgent, important, or aspirational? And you might already know based on the problem that they bring you. What do you recommend we do? What options did you consider? What decision would you make if I wasn't here? Now, shift 2 is to clarify ownership. This is where most teams break down. Every time there's more than one owner, it's going to come back to you to weigh in on, to play the go-between, and ultimately they'll want you to make the decision. Or if there's no clear owner, it simply doesn't get done. Ownership clarifies who is responsible for the success of a task or a project, making sure that X, Y, and Z gets done and meets the agreed upon expectations for it. And only one person or team, depending on the type of project that it is, can have ownership. Getting clear on ownership prevents confusion and chaos and increases accountability, efficiency, and collaboration, ensuring that it gets done well. If you want to see how this was done right, go check out my reaction video to the Artemis 2 splashdown. So for every priority and project, you want one owner who is responsible for making sure it gets completed. They're responsible for making sure it's done on time, the needed stakeholders are engaged throughout the process, and getting it across the finish line. So this week, at the end of meetings, make sure you or a project manager asks, what needs to get done? Who owns this? It can only be one person. What's the projected deadline? And what does done look like? And then shift 3, stop rewarding escalation. If every uncertainty gets escalated upward, your team never builds decision-making confidence. Unless I'm truly the only person with information to answer a question, 95% of the time when my team brings an issue to me, I ask them to bring it to our team meetings. Often the things people bring to me need the input of others on the team. So the best place to make a decision is in our team meetings, because the majority of those meetings are spent discussing and solving issues related to our current priorities and projects. Doing this increases trust within teams. You get better decisions because you likely needed the input of others anyway. It cuts down on the time it takes to solve issues, and it engages the different perspectives and gifts of your team members. And in the weekly meetings that I'm not a part of, I review the notes. And if I have questions or concerns about a decision that was made, I either reach out to my direct report within 24 hours or I save it for our one-on-one. Our goal is to increase our team's confidence in making decisions without our direct input. Their confidence is gonna be low if they're bringing every uncertainty to you right now. So what you can do is create 4 categories and share these with them. Decisions they own, decisions that need team input, decisions they recommend to you, and decisions you must approve. Now, shift 4 is to replace constant check-ins with visible metrics. Leaders get pulled into everything when the work itself is invisible. Without knowing what success looks like, your team will constantly check in with you to find out if they're doing it right or to get your input on what they should focus on next. The simplest way to eliminate this is to establish metrics for each team member. If it's important, it gets tracked. Metrics help define success. They hold people accountable and they make values visible. When everyone has clear metrics tied to their role and responsibilities, then they know what matters most, what the expectations are, what success looks like, and they can prioritize their work without constantly checking in with you. Ideally, you review these weekly in a shared document with your team, and people not only get to regularly share about what they're working on, but also how it's going and how they're taking ownership and responsibility for their area of the team's work. Metrics make people's work visible to the rest of the team. They keep current priorities in front of everyone, and they define success for each team member without them checking in with you on it constantly. So this week, make sure every team member knows, if they don't already, top priorities this quarter, your success metrics, and deadlines. Keeping it in a simple shared document works just fine. If you don't have success metrics yet for each team member, know that it can take roughly 6 months to refine them to a place where they're truly helpful, but I would get started brainstorming what those might be with your direct reports this week and then start tracking them, because they're not going to get clear until you're actually tracking them and getting feedback on whether these are the right ones or not. They also provide a clear window into what's working, what isn't, and what's stuck. When I started leading a team that had 0 metrics tracking any of their work, after 6 to 9 months, their metric tracking became one of their favorite things to review each week. And then shift number 5 is to create response windows instead of instant access. Now, this might not be a popular stance on this, but constant accessibility trains organizational dependency. If everyone has instant access to you at all times for anything and everything, people can depend on you more than themselves. I know that an open door policy is very popular. For the particular work that I can't delegate to anyone else, being open to distractions any time of the day would mean that that work would actually take me 2 to 3 times longer to do because of the amount of time it would take me to task switch in and out of it in order to respond to any type of question people have at any time of the day. Am I available for urgent things when they come up? Absolutely. But urgent and can I get your feedback on this design or report are two very different types of needs. So here's how I set this up with my team. All project-related communication happens in our project management system. We happen to use Monday.com and absolutely love it, but there are plenty of other options out there. I check this at the beginning and end of every day. So if my team needs something from me that's project specific, they're guaranteed to hear back from me on or before the deadline that they set, and usually much sooner if it's simply a quick question. Now, if it's something they need a response on that day, we use GChat with the expectation that people will respond by end of the day at the latest. Many teams use Slack. For our team, we found we don't need an additional tool outside of GChat. Then, if there's truly an emergency, that warrants a phone call. We're a hybrid team with remote staff, so we pick up the phone and text or call. So when someone does that, we know to pick it up immediately because we know it's a legitimate emergency and something that's urgent. And anything that needs to be sent via email, which of course there are things, that can wait for our one-on-ones. If it does happen to need an immediate response that day, we send a GChat letting people know that there is an email that we need them to respond to that day for whatever reason. This is for my personal team. Our goal is to save email for external stakeholders so that when an email does come in from them, we can easily respond within 24 to 48 hours because our inbox is not overwhelming. It also means we're not going to miss important communication with external stakeholders because our inbox isn't overflowing. Personally, I check my email first thing in the morning and then when I'm closing down at the end of the day. So it's rare that it's going to take me 24 hours to reply to something that needs a response from me. Typically, it'll be at most 8 hours if they send it during the day. And then if they sent it after I've logged off for the day, they're going to get a response first thing in the morning from me. And if I need to approve time off or sign invoices or reimbursements, and those do come into my inbox, then I put them into a folder called To Sign, and I have a reminder set every Friday and Monday to batch approvals by going through that folder to align with our business office's weekly rhythm. Creating response windows instead of instant access for everything has been a game changer for my team and for me. People know when they can expect a response or input depending on what type they need and by when. My team used to function like everything was urgent. The reality is that 90% of our work is not urgent, so we no longer work like it is. So for you and your team, I would suggest setting up a place where all project-related communication happens, an escalation communication process like GChat when input is needed by end of day, and then a phone call for something truly urgent, an email response window for stakeholders, and batching approvals. When you do this, you are available to provide support and you're creating margin for yourself so that you can do the work that only you can do. The goal of leadership is not to become more efficient at carrying everything yourself. It's to build a team that can move forward without everything depending on your brain, your energy, and your constant availability. Sustainable leadership is not lowering your standards. It's refusing to succeed in ways that destroy you. If you want more tips to help you engage high-impact leadership at a sustainable pace so that you can have time for your loved ones, your hobbies, and your health without thinking about work all the time, subscribe to my channel for weekly videos like this one. If this video was helpful, like it so others can find it as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.